So, obviously, news is broke. Capcom has now officially banned crack beta users. Does that mean they're getting all banned? No. It means anyone that's using the ban now, or anyone that's using the crack beta since the announcement of the ban is going to get banned. So there's amnesty if prior to the banning, anytime before the banning was set in motion, you got amnesty. So you were clean and valid to compete in CPT. Anytime after the announcement, you are now banned. So they got their fair warning. The statement that I mentioned before about, not making a statement, and Capcom would have to make a statement. Looks like they finally took that seriously, and they're finally going through with the works of banning anyone that is using the crack beta. So I wanted to talk about two different people that are talking about this subject matter. First one is SonicSol, which we've had on the channel before, at least his content on the channel before. He has one corner of the discussion to have, and then we have James Chen, who's on the other end, who's a prolific member of the FGC. He has a different perspective on things, and I think both perspectives are very helpful for what we're going to be discussing about overall. I also want to see what your guys' opinion on this is. This is not in any way an attack on SonicSol, so do not think poorly of him. He's a great content creator. I love his stuff. I don't agree with the things that he's going to be saying, but we can have disagreements. So let's keep it civil. Let's keep it civil about what we're going to be discussing about. And obviously, when it comes to controversies, people are going to have opinions. So, but that's kind of the point of this. The point of this controversy is A, to have fun talking about controversies, and B, to have open dialogue. So that way we can kind of come up with our own thought process and our own opinions of these matters. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with SonicSol's perspective on what happened.
Guys, what's good? This is SonicSol here, and we've got obviously the man Momochi on the screen right now. We've got to talk about this. This man right here talked about how players should be banned playing on the closed beta test, and I made a video about it a couple days ago. I saw the tweet from Giuna, who, by the way, Giuna is a fucking Nikkei protector. Even though he uninstalled the game, he'll be back eventually, bro. Giuna had talked about this already from a couple days ago, and I already made the video about it. And Momochi was basically talking about how Capcom needs to ban people for using the cracked version. Capcom actually responded. They saw what Momochi said, and they were like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? He's spitting. We gotta basically just say fuck these beta crackers, all right? So it has come to our attention that some users have been accessing the Street Fighter 6 closed beta test, the CBT, software, and playing the game outside of the designated period. This is a
Okay, first off, let's talk about that. The Capcom statement, just the first section of this conversation right off the bat. It has come to our attention that some users have been accessing the Street Fighter closed beta test, playing the game outside of its designated period. Yes, they knew. This is also a bit of PR talk too at the same time. Capcom knew for a long time, probably before we ever knew, that these people have been doing this. So for Capcom to respond to it now is really late. So seriously, like, to say that it's come to our attention, it didn't come to their attention. It's been on their radar for a very long time. We, as the public, knew about it since like the end of last year. So to say that Capcom became aware of it, it came to their attention, is a disingenuous argument. It's just PR talk. It's them making sure that they're covering their own ducks in a row so they're not held accountable for the mistake in the first place. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, crack betas or beta crackers and game crackers in general, people that break games, they exist, and Capcom knows of their existence. They even sent out an email to people that were access to the closed beta: do not break our game, do not use our game outside of its allotted time. So they knew this was a possibility, and they didn't address it sooner. So let's recognize what Capcom's doing here. They're covering their ass, and they're putting out PR statements to cover their ass. This should have been instated before the first beta. It took long enough. I don't agree with the amnesty. That's understandable. That's totally understandable. By the way, Capcom showed off DJs level 2 and 3. I'll have to check that out soon enough. We'll have some time today. Obviously, let's hear the rest from SonicSol's coverage of this.
Violation of CBT terms, closed beta test terms, and can be seen as a violation of the Capcom Pro Tour Code of Conduct. For the avoidance of doubt, from this point forward, any player who is shown with clear evidence to be accessing the CBT in an unauthorized way may be deemed ineligible for the upcoming Capcom Pro Tour and Street Fighter League seasons. We appreciate your cooperation and understanding in helping maintain the fairness and competitive integrity of our competitions. So they listened to Momochi, they listened to this guy, they gotta ban him, and that's exactly what they did. They're gonna start banning people who use the Street Fighter 6.
Momochi is a professional player from Japan,
now,
one of the best in the world.
You may be thinking to yourself, right? Why the hell
For
do
those
they
of you
keep
that
calling
don't
this shit
know.
CBT? Call cock and ball torture. This is not. They gotta pick a different acronym. A lot of people seem to be like, yo, I'm gonna speed run the top 8, getting all the crackers DQ'd. CEO 2023 top 8, they got the master rat himself, 6ix9ine. You know, if I see a Gal loop, I'm gonna just snitch by Just a Kid. LaPriz saying me telling the TO that my bro just did a safe jump day 1. Going up to all the top Street Fighter players at Combo Breaker and posing as a Capcom rep trying to get top player opinions, and then taking pics of them while playing the beta crack and DQing my way through CPT. This is like the only one that makes the most sense. Right? This one, 3-1ers during the bracket, giving the side eye when they do the optimal combo. This one, if I know you and you played the crack. This one, them showing crack T, Chris T, them showing the Chris T Street Fighter 6 shit. You know, all these dudes that's not this Luna swag money guy, what they fail to realize is that it very explicitly says, for the avoidance of doubt from this point forward, that means from 7 p.m. April 28th, 2023. That's right. So from 7 p.m. Eastern, April 28th, 2023 onward. They literally said from this point forward. That means anybody that played the cracked beta previously, you're fine. That means Chris T is fine. Chris T is absolutely fine. That means Punk is fine. That means your boy SonicSol is fine. Anybody, however, playing past this point, you're getting banned. You can't create a fucking law, right? Banning something and making something illegal after it was legal beforehand, and then trying to persecute people for that shit that did it before. So if I played on the crack beta before they did this, before they put out this, basically this act, if I played on it beforehand, they can't come after me for that. They can only come after me after this point, which means you can't ban Chris T, you can't ban Punk, you can't ban me, you can't ban anybody who played the crack beforehand, because that would be bad. That's ex post facto. So yeah, we're under the scope, obviously, if we played the crack beta.
Okay, so let's talk about that first, right off the bat. SonicSol's right. You cannot retroactively ban people, despite the fact that some people violated and it did something technically illegal, but nevertheless, they can't retroactively ban people. First off, way too many professionals did it. Way too many American professional players did it. And so they can't ban that many. And I think a lot of these professional players knew that if they crowd that much around it, they wouldn't be able to be banned. Secondly, it wasn't actually banned prior till now. So you can't say that they broke the rules, because technically the rules didn't exist. The rules just came about now. So it's hard to enforce a retroactive ban. But yes, anyone that is using it going forward from the date of its banning can be banned now, but not prior. And that's just the nature of making rules, making policies. That's why it's important for rules and policies and codes of conduct to exist, so that way we all agree to these specific things. So we also have to talk about why it's important, why these things need to exist, and also where does this stuff go from going forward from here? What can we expect going forward from here? Also, how do we enforce these things? That's also a large question that we'll be getting into later down the line, about how we can enforce these things. What does enforcement look like, and the conversation of that it could go to. But you cannot retroactively ban people. It sets a very bad precedence, and it would be different that you could, like, retroactive bans can apply to someone that broke the rules long ago. For example, let's say that the rules were implemented last year, at the beginning of last year. If someone broke those rules and what is discovered after the rules were put into place, then you can retroactively ban. Then the ban applies because the rules were instated at that point in time. So then you can actually retroactively ban, but you can't retroactively ban someone before the rules were put in place, because then you move into a slippery slope territory. Let's say that people broke other rules, like a different rule entirely, and the rule wasn't put in place until, you know, after the guy broke the rules. Let's say that theoretically we ban hitbox from all competitions, any form of leverless controllers, and it applies retroactively before the policy was put in place. A huge amount of players would be banned because of that. So that's why you can't implement retroactive bans prior to its installation into the policies. So we have to understand what this means going forward. This sets a precedence going forward from the day it got announced. Going forward, any other future installments can no longer do this. Anyone that gets caught doing this, they have to do it in secret going forward. When we received our closed beta, there are guidelines that were included. People don't read the states that states what you cannot do. SonicSol should be banned too. Here's the thing. It does state that from Capcom, but Capcom and also CPT are technically two different organizations. So that's why I said that if Capcom doesn't make a statement, then it's important that the CPT actually does. That's the most important thing. The tournament organizers ban it. And the reason why it's important for Capcom to make that statement is because it would force CPT to enforce it. So though their interests are aligned and they are closely tied organizations, I'm pretty sure CPT is actually a separate organization from that of actual Capcom Industries and Capcom developers, but their interests align. So I think that that's why it's important. Just because the guidelines don't specifically refer to the cracking the betas, these people know they're not supposed to be doing something like that. That's not specifically allowed. And you are right. You are absolutely right about that. However, again, rules are rules, and specifying these things and coming up with clear language in codes of conduct are important for this specific reason, because it allows people to do things they're not supposed to be doing. That's why it's really important for rules that we as a community come to agree on, have very clear definitions and very clear statements. Otherwise, there's ways to skirt the rules. And in this particular case, it didn't specify. And unfortunately, I do think it's cheating. I think that these guys did cheat, but unfortunately that's a failure on the CPT for not including that into their policies directly right off the bat until now. And that's where it's frustrating, because this is not going to change anything. These guys have had access to the beta for so long. They're only going to get better. They're only going to get better. They're going to have a month between when they're not going to use it, if they're even not going to use it, which I think is unlikely to be the case. I think they will definitely use it. I think anyone that says that they only used it for a few hours is not being honest. I think they are lying. I think that they used it a lot longer than they claimed, and trained with it a lot longer than they claimed. And of course, they're not gonna condemn themselves when there's $1 million on the line. Someone's about to become a millionaire in the professional tournaments that are going to be taking place. So that's why it's so important. And that's why I said that it was so important for Capcom to make a statement to get ahead of it before it could. Of course, by the time I was talking about it, it was many, many, many months too late. So yeah, better late than never. But still, if they were responsible, they would have gone ahead of it like a month or two after after it got public. So that's my personal take on it. You just can't retroactively ban. It gets into a really, I don't like slippery slope arguments, but this actually gets, you know, falls into the category of slippery slope arguments. Because again, if let's say a ban was put in place for leverless controllers, if that ban was put in place, people could argue, since you did a retroactive ban for that policy, these bans would retroactively go into place. So anyone who used leverless controllers is banned. And I'm not saying that they should be banned. I'm just saying that in theory, let's, you know, with a thought experiment, that's where it would go. And then anyone that wanted to eliminate their competitors in future tournaments, they could say that they used leverless controllers and they have evidence of it and get them banned for that year. That's why it hits the slippery slope argument, and that's unfortunate. It didn't need to be this way. It didn't have to be this way. This controversy didn't need to grow into the beast that it has. So though this rule is put in place, it doesn't do anything today. It doesn't do anything for Street Fighter 6, but what it does allow is it does enforce Street Fighter 7, because we all know that there will be future installments many years down the line. But it does actually have an impact on future installments later down the line, and we'll talk more about that soon enough. But let's move on. Let's begin the rest of the conversation here.
But that doesn't mean you could use stuff from the past. So this is like very big. I'm trying to like point that out. Now, Majin Obama, he makes another good point. Am I bugging, or does this not actually change anything about the situation? From this point forward, makes it feel like this post was made 6 months too late. Just offers relief of excuse of being able to say, we tried to do something about it to me. Majin Obama is right. What can Capcom do, right? The game comes out in literally a month. It comes out 35 days from now, literally a month from now. So how are you gonna be able to really do shit to people who have played the crack? You can't, right? Unless like footage comes up recently of people playing the crack, maybe at like tournaments or whatever. For the most part, there's nothing they can do. You know, muscle memory's already locked in. I'm already doing optimals. I'm already finding shit. So day one, I'm gonna hit you with it, and you're gonna be like, you used the crack, and I'm gonna be like, but did I use it? Did I use the crack before or after Capcom said it was okay? The only way is to get the evidence, basically, to say like, yo, like you was playing on the crack after they already pointed it out that you can't play on it. So now I did get a lot of comments also talking about how it's cheating, and I personally said it wasn't cheating because it's like everybody has access to it, but there's the whole terms of service legality side of it, right, where like they don't want you to be playing this thing after the closed beta period, which is a very clear sign that that's not what they intended. So in a way, yeah, you could say it's cheating because of that, but how do you stop that? You just can't. You can't enforce it. No matter what you can do, you just can't enforce it. And like I said, I agree with Majin Obama on this. I just think that they're just doing this as a way to be like, yo, well, fuck it. There's nothing we can do. Honestly, I'd rather...
Okay. Actually, we're gonna listen to this statement real quick here from someone else, and then hear his final points. I'm gonna deal with that specific argument, because that argument actually bugs me a lot. Not from SonicSol. I don't think he's a bad person. It's not just him that makes that argument. It's a lot of people making that argument, and it does bother me, and it bothers me for a specific reason, but we'll get to that in a moment here.
Other people just wait until the game's released to play it. Why people had to be this thirsty to play the crack beta with only 8 characters baffles the shit out of me. Because, bro, if I am capable of getting an advantage over you, I'm definitely gonna do it. And it's not about playing the 8 characters. It's about understanding the systems of the game, how the game operates in terms of the drive system and the fundamental aspects of it. Without that key thing, nobody would care to play the crack. But it's primarily because you get to understand how the game works. See me, I'm gonna post this clip of me playing the crack from like December 19, 2022, which should be very much legal for me to do. Look,
okay, we'll start with this conversation. Right off the bat, we're talking about, can anything be done? There's no way to enforce this. There's absolutely no way to enforce people not playing the crack beta. That's actually not true. There is ways to do that. They're just not very popular ways, and no one wants them. With that said, we'll get to that part in a little bit here. What's my problem with that statement? My problem is that it's mob mentality. One of the most important things about competition is integrity. So when you go to a tournament and you pay your way in, or you're participating in any kind of tournament at all, whether that be Capcom Pro Tour or any local event for that matter, when you're paying your way in, you're agreeing to adhere to the code of conduct that the tournament organizers have agreed to you. The organizers are having you agree to that. So once that happens, you're stating to the organizers that you have abide to their code of conduct, and their code of conduct now includes that you cannot be using cracked versions of games to level up prior to the game's release. So if you are going as a competitor to these matches, you are violating that code of conduct. Yes, there is no way to enforce that. That is true. But there is integrity. It's a honor system. And guess what? When you honor that, you are honoring the idea that you are a fair competitor in a tournament that is meant to represent the best of that area, whether that be the world, whether that be the region, whether that be a local. You are offering your best effort without compromising your integrity. Integrity is everything in any competition. This is very similar to the Lance Armstrong debacle that happened in the Olympics. Lance Armstrong violated the terms of service when it found out that he was doping in order to get his medals. Guess what happened? He got retroactively banned because the rules weren't put in place. He violated his integrity. And with that violation of integrity came the component of him being completely banned and taking away all those trophies that he inherited. Of course, by then it was too late. He already made millions, and that's really what a lot of these competitors care about, is the money. Millions of it. But his legacy was destroyed in the process. That is where this comes down to it. And this is where I'd say that the argument, and it's not just from SonicSol for that matter, this is an argument that we will see from even on the other side of people that have disagreements that are, say that there isn't anything you can do. Even I just said it a little while ago. It's true, you can't actually enforce it, but you are failing your integrity. And if people look at tournaments and competitive scenes as lacking integrity, that the competitors have no integrity, no one's gonna trust that that person is actually the best at what they do. They're gonna believe that every competitor is a cheater. And more importantly, what they're gonna really think is what happens when someone like, and I don't mean to rag on Punk, because I know that he's the one professional that everyone knows absolutely got caught. However, let's say that Punk wins CPT and gets $1 million. Do you know what's gonna happen? Everyone's gonna accuse Punk that he cheated and he did not deserve it. It may not be everyone. There may be a subdivision of people that say that's not fair, but there's going to be enough people to put in doubt the integrity of the tournaments. There's going to be enough doubt to put a question of the integrity of Punk. That is going to linger going forward. So that's why these conversations are so important. That said, I do think that this is the best approach. This is the fairest approach that everyone can come into, because you can't retroactively ban when a policy wasn't put in place. So I don't think that Punk should be quantified as such. But that's why it's important to set the precedents going forward now. But that's why it's important for everyone to recognize, just because you can't enforce it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be in the rule book and that it shouldn't be an honor system. People can honor you know, and agree to these things, even if it's unenforced. Guess what? Neil Armstrong broke the policies about anti-doping. Even though he did tests, he broke the tests, so the tests didn't work, but there's still a certain level of integrity that he has to adhere to in order to not break the rules. That is what we call integrity. Integrity is everything. Would you go to a bank that says, you know, we have the best security, and it turned out that they lied to you about that best security because they just got broken into by a hacker not too long ago? Would you go to that bank then? No, that integrity is everything. Once that integrity is shattered, you have no reason to believe in it anymore. Integrity is everything. So it really bothers me that when I hear people say there's nothing we can do, so hands up in the air, who gives a fuck? I mean, guys, come on, this is ridiculous. There's a lot that can be done. And the first thing I think that a lot of people can do is straight up, just honor it. Just honor it. Yeah, there are going to be people that are bad apples that are going to do, of course, but honor it. It's an integrity thing. You get away with it. You get a mulligan for now because it wasn't in the policies prior. But going forward, we can't overlook this. This is ridiculous because it is effectively someone getting a head start of the starting line. It's like track and field. When you're on the line, you're on the race course. Guess what? You can't butt ahead before the gun goes off. You can't inch your way forward before the gun goes off. You get disqualified for that. This is no different. At least in my mind, it's no different. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think I'm right, or do you think I'm being overbearing? I do want your opinion on that, because I genuinely can't seem to see past that right now, unless someone's willing to give me a more quantifiable argument, something that's more convincing. Okay, Lou, you mentioned this guy represents what I don't like about the FGC. I was in the service. This is dishonorable to me. I'm all about fairness, and I agree with your point of view. I do think, and maybe you and I disagree about this, I do think that the amnesty is justified because you can't retroactive ban. That's just, it does fall into slippery slope territories. It really does. But going forward, this will stop this from ever happening again with future installments and future games. Hopefully, other video games and other tournaments are doing the same thing going forward. But we'll talk more about that. I want to hear more of what this guy has to say. Feel free to go ahead and comment when you get a chance, but let's hear more of what he has to say.
Look, Capcom said from this point forward, from April 28th, 2023, 7 p.m. This was December 19th, 2022. You can't fucking try me for this, Capcom. But basically what I'm showing off is that you can't deny that this shit is good for basically acquiring knowledge early. The very fact that you can find, like, you know, true block strings when people are fucking burned out that fuck them up for like trying to escape. Like, these type of things, these type of knowledge, the type of knowledge that's here, it's not based on character. It's based on the system and understanding it. So you have to really get that. Like the drive system, understanding how it works, drive regen rate, the way like drive impact works, all this other shit. Meanwhile, people say just DP through this shit. Like you could fucking just mash DP. No, you can't mash DP. You get fucked, right? That type of knowledge is super fucking important to understand. The fact of acquiring knowledge early of the game. There's a YouTube channel as well that exists called Renegade Evergreen, who's been making a lot of like videos about how to actually play like Street Fighter 6 in terms of the drive meter, drive impact, you know, meaty grabs and how it works. Like, this channel is very, very good at being able to like break down the nuances of the game. So people like this have that innate advantage. Regardless of if there's 2 characters or 8 characters, people are gonna learn the game regardless. You just have to understand that that is what people are complaining about when they talk about you're cheating, because you're basically playing the cracked beta at a time in which Capcom didn't want you to play it and gaining an inherent advantage over other people. The only reason I didn't view it as cheating was because I'm like, it's available to everybody. Everyone can do it.
Right there. Let's talk about that. It's not cheating because it's available to everyone. This is an argument I really dislike. It's a bad argument. It's a terrible argument. It's one of the worst arguments I've heard. And I love SonicSol. I watch a lot of his shit. I really do. And this is the criticism of an argument. So it's not a criticism of him and his character. I don't know SonicSol on a personal level. I'm sure he's a decent dude. I think that he's benefited from this, and I think that's why he's having the reaction that he is. So I'm taking that into consideration. And obviously he doesn't want to get banned, you know, and he's not going to get banned. That's not going to happen. So this criticism is not an attack. But that said, that argument really does not sit well with me. It's like saying the Olympics is banning steroids, but across the entire world, steroids are legal. So just because the world has access to steroids, can you use steroids in competition? Of course not. Of course not. You want to know why? Because it's not people that decide whether something is accepted in the policies. It's the organizers that determine that. The organizers come up with the policies and enforce policies. Competitors abide to the policies and compete within the rules that are established. So to make that argument is not okay. It's not okay. It's a really bad argument. It's a straw man argument. So it really bothers me. I don't like it. All right, Lou, you mentioned, okay, so if one professional genuinely used the cracked beta, would it be a slippery slope then? So if only one professional player genuinely used the cracked beta, would it be a slippery slope then? I think what you're asking me is, let's say that only one player in the entire world professionally used the cracked beta, would it be a slippery slope then? Yes, yes it would. And the reason why is because even if it was just one player, even if it was just one, the precedence of banning someone retroactively would set precedents for future bans, for future policies that are set in place. So let's say that this year we ban crack beta players for breaking the rules retroactively. Well, 10 years time, we ban hitbox players for the rules retroactively. And guess what? All those players get retroactively banned because they were using something that was tournament legal at the time. That's where I say that's where it gets slippery slope territory. That's where I say that's where it actually applies. And I do not like slippery slope arguments. It's really a straw man argument, but there are times where it applies, and this is where it does apply, because you can't retroactive ban. That's just not how it works. If you do that, then any ban that's instated affects retroactively no matter what. It's different if what you can do retroactive ban is when the policies are put in place before the controversy happens. So let's say that this ban was put in place 3 years ago from today, then all these guys would be banned retroactively. Then it would apply. But because they just put it into the policies now, you can't do it now. It's not possible. Otherwise, you do move into slippery slope territory. And that's my argument. If you give me a different, point of view to look at it through, maybe I'll be more open-minded to changing my mind. Because here's what I'll tell you, Lou. I'm always open to changing my mind. I just need an argument that convinces me. So if you do not agree, or maybe you just feel like you don't agree, and that's totally fine if you do. But if you think that you have a really strong argument, let me know. Don't be afraid to voice your opinion. This is a cool environment. I'm not someone that is gonna crucify you in any kind of way, and I'm not crucifying SonicSol for that matter. I think that he's a decent dude. He seems decent to me, but I think that he is blinded by what has better been. And here's what I do suspect. I think people in his position don't want to be villainized. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want a what do they call it? A negative association with them. They don't want people calling them cheater every day because they did something which now just became banned, which I think is not, appropriate. I think that is reasonable because it wasn't banned prior to it. It just recently got banned, so it's not, not the case. But I think he is worried about that, and that's a reasonable concern. I think that we can behave like adults and recognize that Capcom Pro Tour made a mistake in not banning it during the announcement. They should have done that. They should have immediately banned it. The moment that it got announced, they should have said on the day of its release, any usage outside of its time frame is immediately banned. Lou, you're mentioning retroactively banning can happen. Just look at YouTube. Retroactively demonetizing videos. The company can choose what they do and what they please if they feel it is the right decision. And you are right about that. But the thing is that the reason why those, like YouTube, for example, and other kinds of companies like that, make those decisions, they make those decisions because of the major component that the things that are out there can be harmful. The reality of the situation is the people that are cheating in these competitions aren't really actually hurting anyone. That's where it differs. Retroactive banning is left for the absolute most extreme cases. Yes, is this guy cheating someone out of $1 million? Absolutely. Or at least I think in theory they would be. That there's a reasonable argument to be made about that. But I think that the difference with YouTube situations and companies like that is because people are actually getting hurt. People are being targeted by things that are not supposed to be on video or on the internet. And those that do get retroactively demonetized, guess what? There's a negative stigma on YouTube about that. People and content creators and content viewers straight up don't agree. And you are right. A company can do that. If a company chooses to do that, there's nothing to prevent them from doing that. That is true. But we as a community think that that's not ethically right. We don't think that that's cool in any capacity. Copyrighted music is not harmful though. Yes, you are right. And that is where it gets into the area of when it comes to like copyright music in particular. That's not necessarily a company thing. That's actually a legal thing. That's where that differs. Like, it's not a company's decision to copyright strike you. The companies are doing that because they're afraid of prosecution from the legal system, because there are laws about that. And that's where that differs. There's no laws about cheating in competitions. That's something that the companies are up to. So the companies are really are trying to navigate our moral outrage and our moral perspectives in communities, within the community. So we as a community have to identify, is retroactively banning acceptable? And I don't think it is, because of that argument that I made before about it being a actual slippery slope. So again, that's where I would point that out in particular. Like, copyright music is legitimately a legal thing. You know, companies are doing that retroactively because it is an actual legal issue. It's not like you broke the law for violating copyright laws. That's not what they're coming after you about. They're worried about being held accountable for you doing that. So that's why they're retroactively banning you. That's what that's going on. Or not you individually, but as an example, you. So, but, we may not agree. That's fine. So let's hear more of his argument.
Side of the fence is they want competitive integrity. They want everybody to have a fair chance. And some people only got a console. For this video, it's important to talk about what I said above. There is an argument to be made that terms of service that was accepted when you got into the beta said you wouldn't do anything like crack it. But I doubt they care about that. They'd have to fuck over 99% of the PC players who got it, basically. Yeah. And that's the other thing.
And that is true. That is true. People are saying there is absolutely no way that Capcom can actually enforce a way to not prevent this from happening. They're basically saying that it is impossible for Capcom to enforce a do not play a crack beta version of the game without fucking over the PC player base. Yeah, you're right. So don't give them the idea. That's my point. If you keep breaking the games, do you know what Capcom's eventually going to do? They're going to stop releasing betas for PC because they can't trust the consumer base to not break the games when they ask them not to do it. So that's why I said that it was so important for the CPT to put this terms of service so early on, because then they could address it. They could ban people for it without it getting to that point. So is that likely going to happen? I don't think so. I don't think that's likely going to happen, but that could happen. That could legitimately happen. So don't say there's nothing they can't do. There is things that they can do. It is their product. It is their game. So if they don't want anyone but consoles having access to it during the beta release, don't say that. You're really setting up the FGC and fighting game players and video gamers in general up to fail. It's a really bad argument. It's a terrible argument. You're saying, I agree that he's being defensive because he doesn't want people to view him in a certain light. And I do think that is, and I understand that. He could be a nice guy in general. Yeah, I would say he probably is. He's probably a little sassy. I respect sass. I do. I really respect sass. But I think he's probably a decent dude. I'm not gonna, I don't have reason to believe that he's not. You have to really convince me that someone's a bad person or a shitty person or someone with a bad attitude. There has to be a lot to convince me. I give a lot of people a lot of room for error, and I think that this isn't a case of that. I think he's just being a little defensive, and it's understandable. But I think he's wrong, and I think this argument is wrong. So please do not use that argument. Do not say that there's nothing they can't do. There is. They could straight up not release PC versions of the game, or at least beta versions of the game for the PC. And no one wants that. Everyone wants to test these things before they are finally released. The best way of testing is having all platforms having access to it during its beta tests. So, yeah, that's my opinion at the very least.
Thing too, Lopedo, is that Capcom had emailed people who signed up for the beta already and told them, please, please, please don't use the beta after the beta period. I got an email like that a long time ago, and you could probably find some record of it and some history of it. They really just don't want people to ruin the competitive integrity of their game, and that's kind of the main thing that we're talking about.
And that's important.
But most people don't give a fuck. Most people are just gonna play.
They do.
Ultimately, what do I think about all this? There's gonna be a lot of people
they
that are gonna
absolutely
try to,
do. If you don't think people don't,
with like past
would you go to a bank that no one wants to, like no one trusts integrity?
Obviously, joke about it. Ultimately,
integrity is everything.
This isn't gonna do anything. At the end of the day, there's not that much time
and he is right about
before
that.
The game comes out. Well, why didn't you just make the demo have more characters? Well, the point is, it's not about the characters. It's about learning the system of the game. And the people that use the cracked beta will not have the ability to understand like the other characters that exist. You only understand 8 characters, but then there's like obviously
that's
18
that's
characters.
A third of the roster. That's over a third of the roster, by the way.
You're still gonna have to figure out how to fight Manon, Marissa, Lily, JP, right? So you're not gonna have that knowledge to fight those characters. What you will have, however, is the ability to know the drive system and how it works and apply that.
I'd say this is another bad argument.
Advantage. The demo, it doesn't matter how many characters that they...
This is what I would quantify, and again, more clarification. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a decent dude. But this is what I would quantify as a bad faith argument. Straight up, if you have access to 8 characters before it's released and you learn all 8 characters, guess what? You just reduced your knowledge gap between the rest of the character rosters. You have that many less characters to have to learn and their capabilities. Part of the learning process of learning a fighting game is learning what every character is capable of. You don't need to learn every single character. You just need to fight them enough times to understand what they're capable of, and that reduces that over a period of time. Now, is everyone going to eventually learn that after like about 3 months? Yes. Yes, of course. But that's still an advantage. To say that the system mechanics are the only advantage that you're getting is not true. You're getting more advantages than just that. You are getting advantages with, you're getting advantages of not only combos that may or may not be there. Good chances are they're going to be there, even with balance changes. They're not going to balance change the characters so drastically that they're unrecognizable. No, they're for the most part, the characters that are in the beta, they're going to be pretty recognizable with some certain tech changes every once in a while. That's one less thing that you have to worry about. There's a learning learning characters is not like you one big tall glass of drink of water. It's a marathon. So if any step that you reduce is a step in for your advantage. So I don't think that just the mechanics are it, but he isn't wrong at the same time. The mechanics are the core part of the game. So if you master the mechanics, you master the hardest part of the game. But the characters learning your characters is such an advantage, and learning 8 characters before everyone else is a big advantage. Lou, you're saying even if it's just knowing the drive rush system, cracked beta players aren't supposed to have access to that prior to when it's allowed, and you are right. Yes, it is not allowed. They even asked players not to do that, so we need to have an honest discussion about this. We can't be playing patty cakes with the truth. It's a bad look. It looks stupid too.
If they added the entire roster, you might as well have just considered that the full game, and they're not going to do that. If we add 8 characters, it's still characters we don't know. If we add 7 characters, it's still characters that other people played. If we add the whole roster, then it might as well release the full game. There's nothing you can do to fix that. Momochi basically said,
again, don't make that statement. I'm telling you, do not make that statement. It's a really bad statement. There is things they can do. Don't push them.
Hey, we tried. Everyone's gonna be ready for Street Fighter 6.
Don't push these companies.
Do you really think this notice by Capcom is going to do anything in the long run, or do you think that this is good? Let me know in the comments down below.
Okay, so that's a big question right out in the end. Is it going to do anything in the long run? Yes, actually it will. What it won't do is do anything in the short term. When people, and this is where I get frustrated with the FGC, they think a long run is 1 year. I'm thinking 10 years down the line. 1 year, yeah, it won't have an impact on the $1 million players. Ultimately, in the end, it won't have an impact on that. You know what will have an impact is future installments, because with this rule being put in place, now any future installments that have cracked betas, they're now bannable going forward because it's now in the policies. There is precedence being set with this policy being put in place, especially if people are caught after this policy has been put in place. If anyone for these next couple of months access that beta afterwards, they could get banned. And when that happens, guess what? There's now legitimacy behind it. There's a case to be made. Someone got made an example of. So don't push your luck. Like, players, competitors, do not push your luck. Do not corner the organizers this way, or the company for that matter, because you push them too hard, they're going to take matters into their own hands and take extreme measures, such as we're not releasing a PC version, even though I don't think that's likely going to happen. If you think that it's out of the realms of possibility, you're really pushing your luck at that point. It definitely could happen. It's just very, very, very unlikely. Just don't make it happen. That's why I have a problem with this argument. It's a really dangerous argument. It's a straw man argument, and I don't think it's not a very long-term thinking process argument either. So let's move on to the next part, because he's wrapped up his point of view.